I have to be selling products that will pay me residually. And the idea is I make more money when I sleep than I'm when awake. That boils down to what offer you make to the marketplace.
Welcome to the Grant Wise Show. This podcast helps ordinary real estate agents build extraordinary companies. Let's grow in 3, 2. Hey, what's up, everybody? Grant Wise here, and welcome back to the Grant Wise Show. I'm excited today for my interview because I get to interview Mr. Colton Lindsay. Colton is internationally recognized as a real estate sales speaker, trainer, and mastermind facilitator. He launched the WGR over 15 years ago, and they became one of Utah's top real estate brands, having helped sell well over 1,000 buyers and sellers throughout his career. And the WGR is now one of North America's top real estate business academies and masterminds. He's trained thousands of agents to become six-figure income earners, with some of his top clients earning well over $300,000 a month in revenue. Over the last decade, Colton's become financially free through real estate, online marketing, business building, and investing. And he shares every day with thousands of people across the globe exactly how he became financially free at the ripe old age of 32. So, Colton, thank you so much for just stopping by the show today, man. I really, really appreciate it.
For sure, man. Thanks for having me over. I'm excited, my man. It's been a while since we chatted, so I just always love seeing what you're doing and just hearing and being curious of what's next.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I know that I had another podcast years ago. We were talking about this and we did some interviews and we did some stuff together. So it's awesome to catch up. I really appreciate you taking the time because I know you're busy, but we want to hear the story. So the point of the show, right, is how did ordinary people build these extraordinary companies? Because that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to help ordinary people that might be listening to this, ordinary agents that might be listening to this. We're trying to help them understand how they can go off and build these extraordinary businesses so that they can lead these extraordinary lives. And that's something that you do. But I know it probably wasn't always like that. And just because it's better now doesn't mean it doesn't come without its challenges. So take us back to when you were the ordinary guy and you just had a dream. And how did you get to where you are today?
Well, I think it was we were talking about before the show started about if you can program this brain up here to do certain things in certain ways on certain days, then you just get a certain output. And I think everyone is just an ordinary person. I never, still at this stage in my life and my career, I don't think I'm anything different than ordinary, right? So that's the first thing is for me is just to realize that every extraordinary person is really just an ordinary person doing things differently. So back when I first started in real estate, I failed miserably. And after that first year, I got a coach and a trainer and a mentor. And what I realized why I fell, I sold 2 houses that first year, why I sucked so bad was I didn't have a system to follow. So for ordinary people, kind of using your language of your podcast here, the idea is get a system to follow. And what a system is a repeatable pattern that creates a predictable result. In any business, there's 3 fundamental systems to build: a marketing system, which I know you do a ton of help with realtors, a sales system, and then a fulfillment that creates raving fans and just expands on your business. And so that's what I did. I got a coach and I learned a system. I went on to sell 20-something homes. By year 4, I was selling 75 homes a year as a single agent, but I'd hit a plateau where I was making, 500,000, 600 grand a year, whatever. But I was exhausted because when you're making $500,000, especially back then in real estate, it wasn't these fat deals. It was like a $300,000 deal was a big deal. So a $9,000 commission was like a home run, not these $15,000, $20,000, $25,000 commissions like they're getting today. And so when you're doing that many deals and you're making that much money, that means you're working lots of hours. And so I felt like the whole reason I got into business in the first place, which was to make a lot more money and to have a lot more freedom, I was making more money, but I wasn't more free. I wasn't happier. In fact, I was fatter. I was less energy. I was less pleasant to be around. And so I realized some things had to change when how I was approaching life wasn't working. And that's when I started the first traditional method, which a lot of people have done this last decade, which is build a traditional real estate team. It worked for a while. I just realized still it was high risk, high exposure, and low profit margins, at least too low for what I wanted, right? I wanted 50% margins, not 12% margins, right? And so I began to shift. In 2018, I launched my academy where we help realtors originally. It was just help them get their first 150K. Then from there, we help them. How do they build out their own real estate teams? And now what we focus on is we teach real estate agents that are making 300,000 to $1 million a year. Well, how do I step out of production and either build my own mentorship company, my own digital marketing and infopreneurship brand, or also how do I build my network with inside of a company like EXP, Real Brokerage, LPT? Is we believe that my brand believes that model is going to continue to progress. And you think about it, the margins are just fatter. So long story short, A to Z, that's kind of my journey. 2005, I failed miserably all the way ordinary to where I'm at today.
I think I love what you said. It's like an extraordinary person is really just an ordinary person. I mean, that's the reality. Is I'm still kind of just like an ordinary guy. I've just made different sets of life choices, because when you get to certain levels of success, everybody thinks, my life's going to change, and it does. I'm not saying that it doesn't, but I don't think people realize how much this is like a daily discipline. My wife gets so annoyed because I'm always like, every day starts at zero. And she's like, why do you work so hard? Why do you have this routine? Why do you do this? I'm like, because every day starts at zero. I still wake up every single day feeling like I felt 8 years ago, 12 years ago, 15 years ago, like a bum, or like I got this thing on me. I got to get all that stuff off. I got to get it out. Because the truth is, even if you do build something extraordinary, you've still got the same ordinary mind that you started this thing with. And if you don't develop those types of routines, at least for me, it makes it very challenging no matter what level of success you get to, because all that stuff's still there.
I think that, because we were talking about that earlier with the routines, I think though, I actually disagree in the idea that I don't think we start from zero every day, especially at this level, because of compound interest, right? You have, and I have, I mean, my bio said 15, but I'm almost 20 years now in this real estate space, 19. I have now 19 years of routines that have built upon itself. And there's compound interest, from relationships to investments to just the skill set of how to sell and persuade today is 10, maybe even 100 times better than when I first started. And so it builds on itself. So I don't think we start from zero, but definitely we like, there's always a funky time at the end of the year for me where it's like, I got a little bit, it's like, what's next? Can I do it again? Can I keep up the things that we've done? Right. And I've slowed down a ton, meaning my growth is still happening, but I don't work 80 hours. I work like 30 hours a week. And I think the reason why, at least our generation, the millennial generation, there's more millennial millionaires happening than any other previous generation. And we weren't born millionaires. At least my view on it is just question the fucking system much more than any other previous generation. You look at the Gen X generation, the nomad generation, they questioned the system, but they were like very reluctant to collaborate. They were like, no, let's get off the grid. Let's stay away. You know what I mean? Whereas our generation is all about collaboration. And I think that's what's happening in the real estate industry right now is the millennial generation is just taking leadership. And there is an explosive opportunity right now.
1,000%.
And I kind of went off the rail of what we were talking about, but
no, it's okay. It's good. That's how these podcasts are really good. I think I agree with you to an extent when you say like each day builds off of itself. And that's so true, because there's compound interest on the decisions that you make. But I think that where at least I've made mistakes in my past is people will get to a certain level of success and then they'll stop doing what made them successful. And then it starts to kind of like slowly drift away. So when I say every day starts at zero, it's like if you don't wake up every day and go through the same habits, rituals, routines that got you to where you're at now, you are at risk of that stuff falling away. And so it's not that your results start at zero every day, but certainly the activity, at least from my standpoint, is something that you've got to be consistently committed to.
I agree. Like, I look at this level of my career, one of the things I still focus on is, can I get 30 touch points a day, 30 conversations going, that some sort of appointment. Yeah. That's how we got on this podcast. I don't even remember. I think one of your team members messaged me a couple of weeks ago or something, and then somehow we were back and forth on our DMs.
I messaged you because I'm also trying to keep the touch points high. So I was like, oh yeah, what's he up to? And then I messaged you, and then you were right there. We went back and forth.
Right. So, I mean, I totally agree with you on that side of things. At least at this stage in my career, I'm not even at my peak yet. So we still have to be doing those types of activities for sure. But they're fun. Like, this is fun.
100%. And that's what I like. People always like, oh, I know you're busy. I know you're working hard. I'm like, look, I grew up in Arkansas hauling hay in 105-degree temps. Like, that's hard. Me sitting on Instagram and DMing you to have a conversation is not really that difficult. It's just intentionally building relationships. So let's get let's make sure we've got perspective on what's hard and what's not. This is fun. Like, that was really hard. That sucks. Earlier in your story, you were talking about the 3 different systems that you recognize that you've got to have. Can you elaborate a bit more? Can you dive in just a little bit more on each system?
We don't have time for this podcast, but I think there's really 8 key realms of business, but 3 fun to freaking mental. First is marketing system. And I think there's 2 types of businesses, and 2023 really proved this. There's a thriving business or there's a surviving business. And a thriving business with a marketing system has an endless amount of high quality leads, like an endless pipeline. And if you look at real estate leads in general in 2023, they just shriveled up. I mean, you see what realtor.com troubles in, OpCity, they're not even taking on new agents now because they don't have enough leads. So that's been the challenge for most real estate agents is leads have dried up as rates have gone up and inventory's gone down. But a thriving business will absolutely have an endless amount of high quality leads, people you want to work with. The second is the sales system. This is all about converting a lead or an opportunity into money in the bank. And there's a few things I learned in sales over the years besides it's a skill, but it's learning, okay, number 1 is go where the margins are bigger. Like can I increase my value per transaction? If I'm going to trade time to sell a product, can the return on the money coming back be much, much bigger? So that's the first, is go into a bigger margin. And then the second is go where the margins are residual. So if I'm going to sell a product, will it pay me for years to come over and over again? And that was the difficult thing in residential real estate sales. Definitely as a single agent, it's just not possible. It becomes a little bit more possible as a traditional team that we saw really from the early 2000s till 2020, coined like the KW method. But I think that's getting old. And so you have to start to look at, okay, what is my goal? My goal is to have financial freedom or business freedom, and really at the same time have soul freedom. I have to be selling products that will pay me residually. And the idea is I make more money when I sleep than I'm when I wake. So this is huge in the sales. And that boils down to what offer you make to the marketplace. I personally think, and you're in the same space, I think the bigger opportunity going forward, especially for a veteran agent, is in the info product space. Can you create a digital product, infopreneurship, mentorship, network, software, something? And there's a lot of opportunity there for veteran agents. And then the third fundamental is fulfillment. Fulfillment, simply put, is a purpose of creating raving fans from who you sell into. And there's the one-to-one model, which is basically real estate. I can meet with a buyer or a seller, or there's a one-to-many. How can I talk and fulfill with many people at one time? And that becomes a little bit more difficult in just focusing on buyers and sellers. If you focus on the agent attraction, building a team, building an info product, building a network, then you can get into that space. And now my same time every week at Thursday at 1:30, I can meet with 100 agents versus 1 agent. If you're going to do a one-to-one model, you just got to charge way more for what you're doing. And it's the same in any industry. I own an Orange Theory Fitness. It's the same thing. Marketing, sales, fulfillment. Marketing, sales, fulfillment. It doesn't matter what industry you're in. It's the same 3 fundamentals.
That's what I love about business. It is business. Like, business is business, marketing is marketing, sales is sales. Principally, these things don't change. It's just the application of them. It doesn't matter if you sell houses, doesn't matter if you sell info products, doesn't matter if you sell gym memberships. Principally, when you learn this skill set of marketing, advertising, sales, business operations, there's not a lot of change. I mean, there's certainly some nuance, but it's just the way that we apply those things. 1,000%. I love what you're talking about. I didn't really know that that's where you went when it comes to helping real estate agents build info products, because I don't think really that many people at all understand the opportunity they have, especially if they're doing anything in recruiting. When it comes to like creating an info product that can help them blow up from a branding standpoint and can help them just like turn on this machine of people that are coming into their organization from a recruiting standpoint. How Like, how did you stumble like into that? And how are some of the people that you're working with doing now as a result of it?
Well, I'll tell you what put me down this line. It was a couple things in 2010. Number one was YouTube. Accidentally, my first YouTube video I put up was me prospecting, and I didn't even know what I was doing. I put it up sideways. I had this thought that if I had videos of me aggressively calling FSBOs expireds, like hard work, it would get me more buyers and sellers. It did not. But what it did do is it got eyes from real estate agents asking, well, how do I do that? How do I set those appointments so easily? The other thing is about that time I was starting to see a lot of funnels pop up online that like I would go on a website and I could not leave the damn website without it popping up trying to buy this, buy that. And I was like, dude, obviously someone's buying this stuff, right? And so I was like, I want to make money online. I had no idea what to do. 2014 is when I started making money online. I'd launched a Facebook group and then I partnered with a company called Fearless Agent. They had done really well pre-social media era, but they didn't adapt well. And so I became this lead funnel for them where then I had a deal with them where I got 20%. I had a 20% thing that sold the company. I got 20%. So within a year or two, I was making $100,000 a year just off of my online stuff. And I was like, dude, I think there's further opportunity. I tried to scale it with them, but I couldn't. We didn't align with the ideas. And so I launched the Academy in 2018 saying, I think there's further opportunity here. And from there, I just kept learning the game. Like how does online personal branding work? How does digital marketing work? And one thing that I'm glad I did now, but I thought I was making a mistake earlier, is I stayed super niched in who I worked with. I was always very clear on my target client, whereas there was a time, probably 2019, where I started thinking, well, maybe I should open it up to multiple businesses, right? I could help the insurance person, this person, that person. And I'm so glad I didn't go down that road, because then as you started seeing that same time, 2016, 17, 18, and I think it was probably 2018, 2019, when EXP caught real traction, and where they're at today with 90,000 agents, that model became proved so much in our industry through the midlife crisis and the innovation of our industry. You're seeing multiple brands with that now, and it has served me so well with my partnership with Real Brokerage. So I learned this early on from one of the owners of Rockerbox, and it's that the riches are in the niches, right? I always ask Josh Cunningham over at Rockerbox, why do you guys always just work with Boomtown? And they keep saying riches are in the niches, riches are in the niches.
I don't think people realize how much money you can make just specializing in one thing. I mean, even if you sell houses, if you specialize in one audience type, it's insane how much money you can make. I find that sometimes realtors don't believe what I'm saying. And then I get enough people on the podcast that say it also. And it's like, oh, okay, maybe Grant's right. But like, you can also look into other industry types to validate this too, because if you look at, I compare often the difference between a general practitioner and a heart surgeon. This is an example of the riches being in the niches, because a general practitioner knows more about the body, probably works longer hours, works more places, maybe, I don't know. And I don't really have that much insight into where they work. Then you look at heart surgeon, studied just as long, probably works just as much, but focused time, attention, energy on one part of the body makes astronomically more money. And I'm sure there are quite a few other benefits too. It's if you look everywhere, you see that the riches are in the niches. So many agents like, well, I don't want to limit myself. It's like, actually, you're limiting yourself by saying that you will work with everybody. Because I always have this quote, it's like, the person that works with everyone works with no one. Is when you don't know who you're talking to, you can't possibly craft a marketing message to them, which means you're not possibly like clearly articulating yourself and your value to them. It's just, it's nearly impossible. So I agree, staying locked in.
That creates a neediness, right? Like you're so desperate for a deal, you'll work with anyone. I always say, don't be so desperate for a deal that you're not willing to walk away. Like every deal I look at, I'm willing to walk away from the deal. If in fact, what I'm constantly looking for, why don't I want to do this deal? What's wrong with this person? What's wrong with this thing? And I didn't always used to think that way. And now what I've learned by doing that, I get rid of, I have this training where I teach, it's 18 minutes on my agent attraction success path. And in there, I talk about Rudy's versus Kobe's. For so long, in fact, a lot of real estate agent teams do this today. They focus on this idea of what I call getting Rudy's, which is a person that does 5 deals a year and wants to get them to 20 deals a year, versus finding Kobe's that are already doing deals a year and successful and putting in the work and making them who they attract into their world. If you look at, you remember that movie, Rudy, in the late 90s about the football player at Notre Dame, right? Like, such a heartwarming movie. He finally plays those last 2 plays, gets a couple sacks, the crowd goes wild, Rudy, but he never got drafted into the NFL. You know what I'm saying? So, but Kobe Bryant, dude, that guy was a beast his entire career because he fundamentally showed up, kept watching game film. He'd go to the gym right after and he'd work us on the basics. Someone like you and I does not need a phone call every morning reminding us to go get what is ours in our life. Like, no one has to tell me to get out of bed in the morning. No one has to tell me to do my routine. No, I mean, people have taught me and gave me feedback, but no one has to tell me to go get the shit done. And so if you can start to target who you're attracting into your world as a person that it just does things, gets it done, a doer, that win faster. Stop spending time on these C-team people that you want it more than they want it.
And I think another good lesson is, but if you do want to work with the person that you got to call every day to tell how to, you need to know that, like, knowing who your customer is crucial to your success. You could go buy 1,000 marketing books all over the world, and they would all tell you this one thing: first, know who you want to market to. We should certainly pay attention to that. Info products really changed my life. When I learned 2 things, when I learned direct response marketing, and then I learned how to package up my information as an info product, that really changed a lot of stuff in my life, because I was able to go out there and I basically built a business that I turned into an ATM machine. I could spend $1 in my business and I would get $4 or $5 back, and it would take roughly 2 to 3 days. And I went from spending no money. I spent like $100 in advertising to spending well over $100,000 a month in advertising profitably. I don't think enough people understand A, what that means. B, again, I keep going back to this, how you can leverage that to build an empire in real estate, because from a recruiting standpoint, you can completely liquidate profitably your costs to get more recruits, whether it's to your team, to your brokerage, to your downline. And how, I want to dig a little deeper in here. How has that impacted the people that you've worked with? Like, to start understanding, like, oh, I can make $10, $15, $20, $30,000 a month without selling a house, but I get to stay in real estate and I get people to come work for me, like, under my down. Like, how has that changed people's paradigms in your world?
People see where I'm at in my revenue, and I tell them, you don't even need to be where I'm at. $20,000 a month changes your family's life forever. It's literally, it's life-changing in the sense of, like, here's a good example. One of the guys in my network and one of my mastermind members, Lewis Weaver, this last year, his dad passed away and his mom's got some health problems, dementia stuff. And long story short, he just bought her a house, and he's able to pay for that because of what he's been able to build through his revenue share and his agent attraction space versus just selling houses. And when you look at that, that's life-changing for him to be able to give that to your mom. That's a huge deal. I got another client in mastermind member who's absolutely just an extraordinary person. She is an A-team Kobe Bryant type person. Her name is Jenna Pete out of Boise, Idaho. And she sells these info products teaching realtors how to generate leads online using Instagram. In last month, she made $155,000. She's able to go on picnics regularly in the afternoon with her kids, not worrying about how she's going to make money because of her residuals coming in on what she sells for her reoccurring revenue. So it's like, okay, when you first get into real estate, can I get to that first $250,000 a year? You're not even living yet before you start making $250,000. Once you get to $250,000 to $500,000, then you start living. But now, what if you could get $250,000 to $500,000 a year that comes whether you work or not? Like, it's a whole nother realm thing. And then I start to think, okay, well, what if I could create such a brand that it turns into generational wealth to where my great grandkids never have to worry about working again. I'm not trust fund babies. Ideally, we're going to teach principles and fundamentals and patterns. But imagine when you were 19 years old, if someone said, "Hey, Grant, here's $1 million loan to go get started on your business plan." Like, what if that's how? Could you imagine where you would be at today? So I start to think about, can I create that? So my mission has become to just continue to create generational wealth for my family and teach others how to do it, simply because I can, number one, and number two is I just love helping people in this space.
I love it. We talk about beliefs and patterns, and what would you do if somebody gave you $1 million when you're 19? I think about that. I'm like, I don't know, probably would have done a lot of dumb stuff. But we're always evolving, we're always changing, we're always growing. I followed you throughout the years, and I know that patterns and beliefs and manifestation and these different types of things are certainly things that you are constantly working to evolve, whether it's into or grow through or whatever. And I've heard you talk about this in the past, like reprogramming yourself to make money. I would imagine when you start working with people that can't, do certain things, and then all of a sudden now are making 6 figures a month, it's like there's a mindset shift that takes place. There's also old patterns and belief systems that have to be reprogrammed over. I don't know if this is something you want to dive into, and I'm looking at the time. We might be running out of time to dive into a topic like this, but talk us through how somebody can grow inside so that they can grow outside.
The inner world laws are way more important than the outer world laws. Not that you don't have to have fundamentals with, direct marketing and sales systems, things like that, but the inner world is what create the outer world. And so there's what's called a financial blueprint, and how our blueprints are created are based upon how we grew up. We were conditioned from our parents or religion or the community, like whether you grew up in Texas or Utah or California or whatever. And there's a belief that's created underlying in the subconscious mind that is on repeat most of the time. And then that creates your output. And so it's a relationship with money. Most people have an anxious attachment with money, or an avoidant attachment with money, meaning if their bank account's going up, they feel good. But if that bank account's going down, they panic, right? With most realtors, for example, if they've only got 1 or 2 deals in escrow, they get to work and then they'll put 12, 13 deals under contract and they feel good. But all of a sudden it shrinks and they have a panic attack. And so it's this attachment to money emotionally that has to, and it's what I call your financial thermostat. And so in order to turn up that financial thermostat to what I call a secure attachment with money, there's fundamental things I got to change in my beliefs. And there's several ways you can do it. One way is, I learned this from Harv T.R. Becker, is power declarations. And I teach this to my daughters every day, but it's the phraseology. Like if you think of most people's language with money, it's, I can't afford that. Or what does money grow on trees? Who do you think I am? The Rockefellers, or this idea that rich people screw people over. Now, if that's fundamentally the belief that's automatically happening, you will be resistant to opportunity and money. You'll be very skeptical. Whereas I do this I've done it for years with myself. I do it with my daughters. I have it recorded on my phone. Money comes to me easily and frequently. I am a money magnet. I'm an excellent money manager. I always pay myself first. I'm a generous giver and an excellent receiver. Money just shows up in my life. I deserve to be rich because I add so much value to other people's lives. And we have hundreds of these powerful declarations that I do repetitively with my girls, and I've done them with myself. And at first it's kind of weird, but now when they lead it, they actually literally think that way, right? Imagine if you were raised that way. So that's the first, is just reprogramming, and it takes time. Everything takes time. Repetition is the mother of all skill. Consistency wins every time with the compound interest. But the other thing that I have found for me was working out limiting beliefs through the repetitive practice of letting go of fear. So that's how I define meditation, Grant, is the repetitive practice of letting go of fear, stepping into love. And so you can do transcendental meditation, breath work, Tai Chi, Qigong. You go on a freaking walk. You could stare at fire. You could take a poop without your phone. And that's a simple version of meditation. But really what it is it's getting present in real time and understand that I am safe. Right now, I'm okay. I am safe. And if a person can step back repetitively with that mindset, then from that space, when you feel safe, when a person feels safe, they feel creative. And when a person feels creative, they can spend time creating a new idea and creating simple actions to go execute on that. The biggest, people ask me all the time, what do I get paid to do? And I tell them I get paid to think. And most realtors, they don't slow down to think. Even you probably sometimes, have to force yourself into your journal, asking yourself questions because it feels like you're so fast paced. But if an entrepreneur or a person can step back in their journal and just ask high quality questions and pay attention to the answers, that allows you to detach from the thought. And then you start to dig out in that 90% unconsciously. And the other part is, people have to understand what the unconscious mind. This took me years to understand, Grant, but everyone's like, we know what the conscious and the unconscious is. We've heard of it, but where really, and what I believe is the unconscious mind is the body's nervous system. It's where the energy moves through the body. And so a particular incident or event that's happened in our past, it gets stored in the nervous system. It gets generalized, it gets distorted, it gets deleted. And and the science shows with Dr. Joe Dispenza, 50% of these memories, they didn't even happen the way they were stored inside of our nervous system. So it's running on repeat on something that didn't even fucking happen, right? And so breath work is one of those ways that will go into the nervous system and dislodge that. I know there's some more advanced techniques I'm not a huge fan of, just because I've had horrible experiences with like plant-based medicines, which are really just hallucinogen drugs. But ideally, you've got to go in and do something with your nervous system and release that. And there's faster and slower ways. I think the safest, fastest way is breath work and meditation.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I grew up, I didn't have anything. Anybody listening to this podcast knows the story. Most of the people that I grew up in poverty and then really had to work hard to change my money story over and over and over again. And I remember seeing stories that you would put out there or content you'd put out there, like it's normal to make $50,000 a month. It's normal to make $100,000 a month. It's normal to make $1 million. And just start reprogramming over the old stories and developing new neural pathways, new belief systems. And I've seen in my own life just consistent daily prayer, visualization, meditation around these things. Everybody wants to make it more complicated than it is. It's taking 10 or 15 minutes a day, and it's, getting to a place of solitude, whatever that looks like to you, and just being conscious, being awake, just thinking through these things. And I like what you said, I am safe. I don't think enough people recognize that they live in this consistent state of fear, intentionally or unintentionally.
Especially since the last few years, the way the media has just gone bananas and the narrative is all over the place. Presence is about being calm and being still with inside of the vibration. And there's a lot of chaos in the vibration right now. So to me, I'd probably say that to myself, put my hand on my heart and take a deep breath in. I'm safe. I'll do the same thing with my daughters. So I got 8-year-old and 11-year-old, and they'll be like having their little panic or whatever. You know what I mean? Little girls doing their thing, right? And having a little breakdown. And I'll just put my hand on their chest and be like, deep breath. You're safe. You're okay. And then I get them saying, I'm safe. I'm okay. Soon as they can start to say that, they calm the nervous system. 80% of success and happiness is doing what the body's nervous system does not feel like doing. The nervous system gets wound up and it feels like freaking out and doing this. You get crazy. But if you calm the nervous system and do opposite of it, you realize you're safe. That doesn't mean that shit can't hit the fan. I mean, I'm one of the biggest conspiracy dudes out, but I want to feel good as I watch a meltdown, right? I don't want to panic if there's a meltdown.
Man, I love it. I appreciate you stopping by so much and sharing a lot of this wisdom. I mean, I think this is a lot of new ways of thinking for people. And I think it's, just a lot of the stuff we're talking about, especially near the end of the podcast, it's how I've gone from ordinary to extraordinary. It's not anything crazy or flashy. It's just understanding who you are and who you were and who you're becoming, and equipping yourself with tools that can help you consistently change the way you think and change the way you act and change the way that you show up in the world. And we like to overcomplicate it. And there's, so many influencers out there that have these tricks that are going to change everything for everybody. And I mean, the reality is it's actually all very simple. So if somebody was listening to this And they're like, all right, Colton, I like what you're talking about, but what's step one, man? Like what is one thing that I could leave this podcast and go do that would help me on my path from going from ordinary to extraordinary?
Understand that time management is a farce, right? And what it's really about is attention management. And so the best way to manage your attention is to set up 3 routines throughout your day: a morning routine, a day routine, and an evening routine. Everyone thinks about the morning routine, which is great, but get a day routine and an evening routine as well. And I always like to ask this question, Grant: what is the emotional outcome I want from this routine? And then my actions or my rituals are what generate an emotional vibration. Sometimes I just want peace and calmness and putting money in the bank. Sometimes I want presence and connection. And so it's all dependent on what is the emotional outcome that you're looking for this moment to generate the outcome that you're looking to create in real life. So attention management, morning, day, and evening. I think, hold on, I want to add this too. You said something that was really important. It's you were consistently reprogramming. You can't just visualize it once. And I want to make sure your audience sees that. I consistently do it. It has to be done repetitively, not just once or twice.
I don't think people recognize how easy it is to fall asleep at the wheel for like a month or a year or or a longer period of time. And so being awake, being intentional, I love what you're talking about with attention management, not just time management, attention management. I think it's so critical. Man, we could keep going. I better stop. I appreciate you so much. I'm going to make sure that everybody can link up with you. Guys, I'll make sure that I drop that in the show notes. Thank you, brother, for being on here. This was very impactful for me, and I know for everybody else that's going to listen to it, and it's much appreciated. And thank you all for continuing to listen to the Grant Wise Show. This has been another really impactful episode helping you understand how to go from ordinary to extraordinary. So thanks, Colton. Thanks, everybody listening. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast. Make sure you leave a review. I'm going to share those back with Colton, and make sure you have an epic rest of your day. We'll see you all on the next episode. Thanks for listening to this episode of The Grant Wise Show. Please don't forget to subscribe to this channel, leave us a review, and we'll see you on the next episode. Thanks.